This election is won. This is the global edition. There were record-breaking women's Zoom meetings of stars, Zoom meetings of Republicans, and there were Gen Z campaign meetings. Kamala and her sister Meena had a mother who was a scientist from India. She said, "Don't complain, do something." And my life coach, Priyanka Chopra, said, "Live on your own terms." Kamala said, "Anyone who beats down another is a coward." And Meghan Markle, at 11 years old, said, "If you don't like something, tell people. You might help a lot of other people." And then she said, she continues many lectures, including going to UN Women, and she speaks about women should have the possibilities and opportunities in the community. This is a very important video that I saw with Meryl Streep speaking about permissions in the United States. So the permission she was speaking about was Donald Trump ridiculing a handicapped person and imitating his disability. And she said it would give permission for other people to do the same thing. That was the most important video I saw because I noticed certain permissions. Well, I had to do a special edition because Dick Cheney and his daughter Liz Cheney said they are doing a permission structure and they are supporting Kamala Harris. And I was just wanting to make a point about permissions in the United States. And so I found the theme with Meryl Streep and with Dick and Liz Cheney. Now, I took my bachelor's degree off my resume, but I had experience with a certain industry. So they called me in 2 days after I applied for the job. When I went all the way to North Palm Beach County, I experienced a permission. So the first day, I had a young African-American male tell me, "I'm working 7 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and then I work on line 1 to 6, but they don't know that I work on line 1 to 6. So he is abusing me on the job. And then I go across the street. I also applied at this establishment across the street, and the woman makes the same abusive comment. And then this was the second day. Then the third day I'm at work, and an African-American sheriff comes into the place and said, "You're small." And then the fourth day, the housing African-American lady acts friendly to me and asked me where I work. So that's 4 African-Americans in 4 days stopped me all the way from Boca and Delray all the way up to North Palm Beach County. So I said, it's clear to me, something's going on. So I don't want to be just a victim. I have to not just complain, but do something about it. So the first thing I did was I made an acronym, OFNA. So I assumed that they call up to that job. I used to be a supervisor in that industry, and I went in entry level. That's why they called me in 2 days. So the acronym is OFNA, is Obama Free Phone, Pre-Conquest, Bragging, Nigger Gang, Stalking, Bullying. And then WAPA is the white are giving permission for these attacks. So when I worked in government, I was with the city of Delray Beach. I worked and bought a property, a condo for sale by owner. And when I came home one night, I saw 3 sheriff flashing lights. So I thought it was a robbery or something. So I asked them what happened. They said they're looking for you. Well, a girl comes into the city, but the city of Delray Beach does not know that that's my 4th government job. Because when I was 17, I worked for the government of Jamaica in the summer. They did not know I worked for the finest government in the world, the European Union. And I met real public servants. And then FAU got me a job temping with the state SunPass toll operation. Then I went to the city of Delray Beach. When I bought the 2 properties working for the city of Delray Beach, I was treated very well. Then a girl comes in and bullies me out. That's a whole other video for the court. But I say that if the sheriff comes into Boca Raton Police jurisdiction at 6:45 a.m. Saturday, March 18, 2022, somebody gives them permission to stalk me or track me down into Boca Raton. I was at work 2 o'clock in the morning because I was just nice to my employer because I had another job. I work with Bitcoin. So John Sarbanes just emailed me, or I think it was his assistant emailed me. Not sure, but I forwarded it to my family to take a look. I said, is this really John Sarbanes? Because I already retired. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this whole issue of 1.4 million Americans dying of COVID. I don't want to spend time on it. I don't want to spend time on the robots replacing people. I don't want to spend time on the probability. But if Trump becomes president, we know that 300 million Americans, according to John Sarbanes, will have no benefits. So who's working? This is who China said should work. There was a debate with two robots in China, Sophia and Hans, and they said the reason why robots have to work and not people because people have too much conflict and competition for scarce resources. I did not include that picture in this video, it's in another video. So the AI is so advanced that it has imagination, but they can do everything. They're doing construction. There's a robot nurse. That nurse was very rough on that patient in the video. But women want a rightful place at the table. Trump encourages abuse, disposal of women, and misogyny. I met Marla up in North Palm Beach County, and Marla Maples was a contestant in a beauty contest, and he married her. That was his second wife. And he and her were on TV, and then she got a job working in TV. So I said to her, are you still in TV? Marla is disposed of comfortably because Donald Trump is so rich. But the other men in the United States want to do the same thing, but they don't have the money to do the same thing. But they still use him as an example. So the problem also is that there's misogyny because he has a wife with a son, pregnant, and he is with a porn star, and the world knows. So misogyny is being normalized also by Trump and the Republicans. I think it's a crisis because of what I've experienced. And I try to simplify things so people can understand. There's a phenomenon where people are sent. There's the art of devaluing and degrading a woman. And the Republicans are in the courts taking away Roe versus Wade and rights of women. How scent works? Well, in 1967, some white Americans came to Jamaica. This is how close the airport is to my house. I was studying French to go to school in Canada. I have relatives in Canada, the UK, and my best friend is in Germany. She studied French with me, and she studied German, and she lives in Germany. I see her on Facebook. So these Jehovah's Witnesses were sent, and then the Jackson 5 also came, and that's why I came to the United States school instead of Canada. So recently I had a Jamaican guy who works at Publix come to where I was and say something really rude. And then this guy came into McDonald's. I don't know who he was sent by, but his comment was very kind of degrading and devaluing, kind of abusive comments. But the most alarming thing is that my ex-husband did not give us any justice in divorce court. My son tested gifted at 6 years old. Instead, he sent a state trooper. So this African-American state trooper comes into where I work at the city of Delray Beach. Then he tickets me back to back and tows my car. Then I told you about this incident with the sheriff. So I'm like, why are police tracking me in this fashion? I've been working since I'm 17. I have a bachelor's degree from FAU. I work and went to school. What more do they want from me? Well, here's the art of degrading and devaluing a woman. Kanye West's second wife is having oral sex. Of course, he has her dressing like a whore all over the place. And nobody stops him or tries to help the girl. Now, this is very symbolic. In communist China, they have a business called Face, and it has everybody's face. They grab it from the internet. So your face is your identity. This is the way O.J. Simpson's wife's face was mutilated. Of course, she was killed, but she had a very bad wound in her back, but they also did the facial mutilation, which is symbolic. It's the worst kind of degradation you can do to a woman. This is Rihanna. When Chris beat her up, she also had facial mutilation. This is Meghan Markle when she was 11 years old. She spoke about the psychological attacks on women. Of course, we see the toxic workplaces with psychological attacks on women. But Meghan Markle said, if you don't like something, tell someone. You may help a lot of other people. I went to a party, it was a fraternity party, and I heard some music which referred to women as whores. And I said, that's part of the art of degrading and devaluing women. The Republicans took Roe versus Wade out of the Supreme Court. And really what that does is, that is being clear that what was developing from the time when O.J. Simpson's wife was killed and nobody was convicted is just crimes against women or devaluing and degrading women. And then they end up going into the court and making the United States courts invalid. But at least we have the proof that it's invalid, so we'll find better courts. Psychology today says humans are genetically predisposed to kill each other. But in different cultures, you have different thinking styles. You have different expectations. Hunter-gatherers, as Hal Draper said, they use gossip, ridicule, and ostracism as social controls. But when social controls erode, they become misogyny, which is treating women differently from men in social and professional settings. Are they getting away with it? Yes, they are. That's why something has to be done. This is deep-rooted because here are O.J. Simpson's wife's sisters sitting here, not even able to think. I have 5 sisters. I found out that the gangs in government would track and stalk me. And the most alarming thing was that they cut the brake line on my son's car, and they also went into my condo and put a leak in the kitchen and went on to the house with the alarm in it and put a leak in the kitchen. So I sent a picture of the leak in the house to the FBI. So here's O.J. Simpson's wife's sisters again. They said 30 years later, the grief is still the same. Why didn't they do something? I ask people in the public all the time, because I don't have any family here. I speak to strangers. I say, what do you think about it? The African Americans said drugs were involved. I believe that. Those people who got into my house and put the leak could have put drugs in my house and get me charged with it. I had African American police in Broward County try to set me up for grand theft auto, but I didn't give in to it, so he sent somebody to do something else. The time now is to do prevention, documentation, detection. We need to get justice in courts, but the American courts are invalid. We need to get reproductive freedom, and we need women's health care. Kamala is a manager, so she'll do the Kamalanomics, and she'll be our superwoman. She's a proven winner. But when you have a situation like I had, all the way, I'm now in Boca Raton at Florida Atlantic University campus. I went all the way up to North Palm Beach County, the northernmost part of the county, and I have 4 people in 4 days stalk me and abuse me. I have a crisis. I'm living in a crisis, and I'm going to go to court. I'm glad we know that these courts in the United States are invalid. The Caribbean diaspora has different ways of migrating. My best friend studied French with me and German, and she lives in Germany. I see her on Facebook all the time. I have two sisters in the UK and I have cousins in the UK. I went to France and I went to Italy, and I do not see the kind of things happening in Europe that's happening in the United States. So I say, why is it different? Well, the Caribbean diaspora, we're having a powerful dialogue, and we're all over the world, and we have cultural differences. As they said, believe in your culture because it matters. So I'm talking about my experiences, and we're trying to get the groups together because, as Kamala Harris' mother said, don't just complain, do something. So we're trying to get a delegation, including this group called Time Done. I was talking to Time Done before I identified some other problems later, but now everything is becoming very clear. And what was really clear for us is 2023, there was an Indian graduate student who was killed, and Officer Orderer caused a protest because Officer Orderer said, just cut a check, she's of limited value. So there was the protest from this event in Seattle, Washington. People had fires and everything, and they protest and go to prison and all this stuff. But then 2 weeks later, they go back to their house, they go to the mall, they go to work, and they don't do anything. So they'll get mad again. That's why we're reaching out to victims. We want you to collect evidence and videos. We're organizing Zoom calls. There are many pro bono international human rights attorneys. If you Google pro bono international human rights attorneys, you will see. The reason why is because George Clooney married to an international human rights attorney. And you know, all the Americans, they watch so much TV. Oh, that's what I should do too. So we need a delegation to the attorney, and we need a delegation to the court. We want to have confidence in the international court because we cannot have confidence in the American court. It's invalid, and the Supreme Court took Roe versus Wade out of the law. So here's a verdict of $900 million. We are planning a verdict for 3 groups and myself and the attorney of US $500 million. Harvard had a lecture, and Harvard said, Harvard is admitting that there are differences in culture, race, family background, language, class, beliefs, customs, norms, tastes, ways of thinking, and legacy. Legacy is a new one. But Harvard said things have to be corrective. So the first time I watched it, I walked out to the man from Brazil, and I spoke with him for a while. And then I corrected everything. I said, I was speaking more than you. And he said, yes, they say that for every 1 word a man speaks, a woman speaks 47 words. So I apologized to him, and that's corrective. So we have Caribbean Lives Matter, Time Done, and Limited Value. And we have some other verdicts here, 100 million, 500 million, 1 billion, 100 million, 1 billion. That's from 2008 to 2022. The verdict is proof that we can trust the International Criminal Court. Washington, from time to time, tries to scold the court. And the court went from 8 judges to 18 judges. To me, that's a good sign because they have more female judges. So what we need is change. We want to stop covering up the things that are happening. We cannot change people's thinking. Myself, I've been in government service beginning 48 years ago. I can't even stop myself. I have a full-blown YouTube channel with everything that I need to complain about, and now I have to fix something. Florida Atlantic University is a Trump supporter, but people can see Kamala Harris. they can see that Wharton School and I think it was 16 Nobel laureates and also somebody else supports her plan. I put my diploma on here because I appreciate what I learned. This is Tim Walz, her vice president with the alumni. He's influencing Gen Z. So Kamala Harris says there's going to be new management. She's a fighter and you can trust women. And she's a manager, but I want to lead this change because Jesus in Luke 23:28-31, he had empathy for the weeping woman. I'm fighting for one of 300 women in my family, one of millions of women in the United States, one of billions of women in the world. This is my little tyke with my grandmother, his great-grandmother, and my sister is in New York. She said, "Are you coming back to New York?" I said, "No, I'm not going back to New York because I'm not going to run because my mentor died of cancer, but I have a Chinese monk who is helping me to be a warrior. And my dad was a Cuban fighter, so I'm not going to run back to New York." But my sister sent me the picture. I remember my little tyke who was killed. And that's him in Jamaica, safe with his great-grandmother at the house, which was across the street from the elementary school. I used to jump the fence to go to elementary school, and that's why my value system found education so important. And the principal of that elementary school in front of my mother's house, her daughter is the first female PhD in engineering. So when my ex-husband did not go to divorce court, my son and I could not tell the judge that my son tested gifted at 6 years old. We could not keep him in his school, we could not keep him in his house. We had opposing value systems and nothing was corrected. Now my son is dead. But at least after speaking to the anthropology department at FAU and speaking to the head of the department, I was not sure what a family who is Cuban and Jamaican is. And I think we're interdependent as opposed to hunter-gatherers. So the Caribbean diaspora is global. And the United States, since World War II, the United States has been given more and more wealth. All trade is done in the US dollar. US dollar is actually 12 times higher amount of reserves than the pound sterling. And this is what the world gave to USA. But the world does not know what is happening in the USA. It needs to be said and it needs to be cured. We have to find a solution. I have a unique case because I had 3 different groups of Americans flying Jamaica in 1967, a white male, white woman, and the Jackson 5, and I was 10 years old. So Americans have been impacting my life since I was 10 years old, all the way in my parents' house in Jamaica. So Mamala is a manager of the country, and I want to lead us all the way to the court. And we're going to file the charges against the United States because I've been contacted by other people already on Facebook, and I didn't even know there was a Caribbean Diaspora Lives Matter. I knew there was time done. I had been communicating with them. And Harvard Business Review said managers manage, but leaders cope with change. And I need something to change. I asked my family for all of us to move to Switzerland, but they're not really ready to do that because they have husbands, spouses. So the Democrats said move the needle. It means make a noticeable change or impact. And Kamala has the support of her husband trying to move the needle, but she's a manager. And so we don't know what she's going to get done, especially she's all the way up there. She doesn't know what's going on in Palm Beach County. I try to tell them what's going on. This is my little tyke with his great grandmother in the house across the street from the elementary school. He was taken from me. What else was taken from me? Well, my fourth government job was taken from me. I have a video about that for the court. I'll get my written evaluation because I did have written evaluations every year. My condo was taken, my house was taken, and my health was taken. Well, this is my number 5 sister of 5. No, it's 6 of us, so she's number 6. She was killed also. So I was telling my family how to investigate the case because when I worked in code enforcement, I worked along with law enforcement. And I also was experienced people being sent and tracking and things like that. So all you have to do is really document things, take pictures, email them to me, text them to me, call me, videotape them, YouTube me, whatever was taken from you, however you were hurt, that's my email address, that's my phone number. But I had people getting in on the group in Facebook called the Delegation to the International Criminal Court. And I appreciate them very much. I did my work today. I spoke to them, what they need to do. Nothing the USA could give me would be sufficient. I want to go around the world on TV stopping misogyny. On the other side, we have access to properties, even in Jamaica, by Kushners. The Kushners bought the Watchtower building, and I was a witness for 30 years. So the rich are getting access to the world that way. And then I have to experience these kinds of stalking. This lady here stalked me and asked me for $2. I guess she was verifying what I had. Then this man stalked me. So it's been very hard ever since they bullied me out of government, but they did not know that that was my 4th government job. Thank you.